And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowls and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. So we've talked, extensively, guys, on the flood and on Sodom and Gomorrah, how those are pictures of the second coming of Christ. And at the beginning of Genesis 8, after the flood had destroyed the world, it said God remembered Noah, right? And so ultimately, what I want y'all to understand is there's going to come a time when it's over with. You're going to go forth out of the ark, right? You're going, in other words, there's going to be a kingdom. There's going to be a new heaven and new earth. All the things of this world, the sickness, the pain, death, all those things are going to be done away with.
Right.
And though it seems in our flesh that it's going to take a long time, it's really not. And in Carlos and Patricia and even me, I can tell you that, I'm 60, and it just seems like the other day I graduated from high school.
Right.
And time flies. It's your life is a vapor. You're here and then you're gone.
Right.
And so you only have so much time to redeem the time. You have to redeem that time. God is going to pay you back. He's not unrighteous to forget your work and your labor of love. So it's my encouragement to put up with the suffering, to deal with people who treat you harsh, because God is not going to forget those things, right? Blessed are you when you are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Yours is the kingdom. You're going to get into the kingdom. That is a sign. That is a sign and indication that you're going to get your inheritance.
Right.
And so as we begin to talk about, this is kind of the beginning of talking about the seals. Even though we're not going to talk about the seals directly today, you're going to find out that the four kingdoms in Daniel are going to be directly connected to the seals, and we'll show you that here in the next week or so. But we're going to look, and we're going to see these things we learned about. Remember, partial and full fulfillment, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you this in Daniel. Now look, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and you remember he didn't want the interpretation. He wanted to know what the dream and the interpretation was.
Right.
So if Patricia had a dream last night and she said, can y'all tell me what my dream was? We would look at her like, what? Like she's crazy. Because that's not possible for another human being to be able to tell me what my dream was last night.
Right.
So that's the situation. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He wants to know what the dream is. And he's threatening basically to kill everybody if they don't tell him what the dream and the interpretation was. And so when they come to Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, they ask God, and God shows it to them. Not because of any person they were, but God is merciful, and God tells Daniel the dream. And so he's going to come and he's going to tell Nebuchadnezzar the dream. And he says, Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. Now, here it is. This image's head was of fine what? Gold. So that's the first one, first part of the dream. Then his breast and his arms were of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. So you got four parts, right? You got the head, you got the breast, right? They got the arms, and the breast, you got the arms, and then you got the legs with the feet. He says, Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out with hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell thee thereof before the king. Okay, so he's going to, now I'm going to tell you who they are, but I'm going to let scripture tell you who they are too. Okay, so I want you to think this is my interpretation. This first, the head of gold, is going to be the first kingdom. Okay, Babylon. And the silver, the breast and the arms of silver, is going to be Media Persia. Okay, and the belly and the thighs are going to be brass. The brass is going to be Greece. And finally, the iron and the feet with iron and clay is going to be Rome. So here's the interpretation right here of the dream. He says, Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the God of heaven have given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given unto thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Okay, so he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar, right? And look what he just told Nebuchadnezzar. Who's Nebuchadnezzar the king of?
Babylon.
Babylon. He says, Nebuchadnezzar, thou art this what?
Head of gold.
Okay, does that sound like something that's been sealed or hidden?
No.
Or is that revealed?
It is now.
It's revealed, right? He just told you.
Yeah.
You're the head of gold. That's not something that's been sealed or hidden or anything. This has been fulfilled, right? This is fully been fulfilled. You are the head of gold. You are the king of Babylon. And he says, after thee, Nebuchadnezzar, shall arise what?
Under the kingdom.
So he's telling you that this gold is a kingdom, and this silver is a kingdom, and this brass is a kingdom, right?
Yes.
And so after thee shall rise another kingdom, right?
Right.
Media Persia, right? Inferior to thee. And guess what? Another third kingdom of what? Brass.
Yep.
Greece, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. So we see he tells you that he lets you know right away that these are what? Kingdoms.
Kingdoms.
Right?
Yes.
So the gold, the silver, the brass, the iron, those are kingdoms.
Yes.
And he says the head of gold is the actual king, right? Mm-hmm. So Nebuchadnezzar, right here, this is Nebuchadnezzar and this is Babylon. He is the head of what? He is the king of Babylon, the head of gold. And that was fulfilled. So here's the question. When the wise men came, when Jesus was born the first time, right?
Yes.
Let's just look at the story. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came what?
Wise men.
Wise men, right? They came from the east, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have what? Seen his star, and we've come to worship him. Oh, here it is. Here's the prophecy. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a what? A star out of Jacob.
Jacob. Yes.
Okay, who's Jacob? It's Israel, right? There's going to be a star coming out of Israel, and we've come because we saw a star. But that wasn't the only thing, because they're called wise men, and wise men know the scripture.
Right.
And they knew this. See, when he said, when the wise men are reading Daniel, guess what they know? They know thou art the head of what?
Gold.
So when he dies, right? When he dies, when Nebuchadnezzar dies, because y'all remember the story. Remember Belshazzar in Babylon. He is like the grandson or great grandson, I can't remember, of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
And he brings out all the vessels that they had taken from the Solomon's temple, right?
Right.
And they begin to drink, and then they see the handwriting on the wall.
Right.
So Daniel comes out, and he gives them the interpretation. And then after the interpretation, in that night, guess what happened? Darius, they kill Belshazzar, and Darius the Mede, look at this, Darius the Mede, the second kingdom, comes into power.
Right.
So they knew that the first kingdom had passed, and then they knew that Darius the Mede and Cyrus the Persian had passed, and then guess who comes along after that? Alexander the Great.
Right.
And then eventually the fourth kingdom, which is Rome, comes along, and guess what? Here are the wise men. They're in the east, and they see this great fourth kingdom come up, as strong as iron, the Roman Empire. They start looking for the star. They know all these have been what? Fulfilled. So they're looking. So when this kingdom comes in, they begin looking for what? This right here. Now, I'm not telling, they might have had more signs than that. They might have had scripture that we didn't have, but they knew when they saw that star, they knew that they needed to start heading toward Israel.
Right.
Because guess what? The king of the Jews had been what? Born. And so it's going to be the same thing. If you want to be a wise man and you want to know when the second coming is, right? You have to know what to look for.
Yes.
And God is going to use these same scriptures to show you the second coming. Because look, let me ask you this. Is Nebuchadnezzar alive or dead?
Dead.
Okay. Is Darius and Cyrus still alive?
No.
Is Alexander the Great still alive?
No.
Is the Roman Empire still ruling the world?
No.
No. They're all past. They've all been fulfilled. But what I'm going to show you is all four of these, even though they've been fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is just like looking at John the Baptist.
Right.
Just because he says that that's Elijah does not mean the true Elijah is not still what? Going to come.
Right.
So I'm going to show you that all four of these kingdoms are coming back. Yes. Now watch this. Because he's starting to look what he's doing. He's saying, he talks about all of them, and they've all been fulfilled. You just told me every one of these are gone and dead. Now look what he says here later in chapter 2, because he's in chapter 2, verse 40 here. Look in verse 44. And in the days of these kings, which kings? Well, the kings we just talked about, right?
Right.
Look what it says. Shall the God of heaven do what?
Set up kingdom.
Oh, did Jesus set up the kingdom when he was here the first time? Because he came during, remember, he came during which kingdom? This one right here.
Right.
And so you would think that if that was the full fulfillment of them, and that's what his disciples thought. Because look, and as they heard these things, guess what Jesus had to do? He had to speak a parable. You know why? Because he was nigh to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the what?
The kingdom of God.
Because they knew, they just like the wise men, they knew that all those kingdoms had been fulfilled.
Right.
And so they thought that the kingdom was going to appear. So he had to give them a parable and say, guess what? A certain nobleman, talking about himself, went into a far country talking about heaven to receive for himself a what?
Kingdom.
And to return. He says, no, the kingdom's not going to come right now. I got to go away. I'll get the kingdom and I'm going to come back. And you, depending upon what kind of life you live and how obedient you are to me and how faithful you are to me, is going to be dependent on whether you get into that kingdom. So let's look at the rest of it. And in the days of these kings, Nebuchadnezzar. So do you think the real is, he's talking about the real Nebuchadnezzar and the real Darius and Cyrus and Alexander the Great. No, just like he wasn't talking about the real John the Baptist, right?
Right.
I mean, the real Elijah. When he was talking about John the Baptist. But that doesn't mean that guess what? Elijah's not going to still come. And just because those 4 kingdoms, guys, have already come and gone, doesn't mean that they're not coming again. Because he says, in the days of these kings that have already passed, shall the God of heaven do what? Set up a kingdom which shall what? So do you see in the first part of Daniel 2, part of it's already been fulfilled, and yet if I was to read that to you, I'd have to close the book and say, you know what? These things right here have been what?
Fulfilled.
I could read this to you right here and say, guess what? And close the book and say, these things have been fulfilled. But then guess what? Can I say this right here has been fulfilled?
No.
No. See, wasn't that what Jesus did? He says, today, these things have been fulfilled. And he had to close the book in the middle of the chapter, in the middle of the verse.
Right.
And that's what I'm telling you. In Daniel 2, you have to close the book because this hasn't been fulfilled.
Right.
So he's going to set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces, and it's going to consume all these kingdoms, the kingdom of gold, the kingdom of silver, the kingdom of brass, the kingdom of iron. Even though all those are past kingdoms, they're all going to come back. And when Jesus comes back with his kingdom, guess what he's going to do? He's going to consume all of them.
Yes.
And his kingdom shall what?
Stand forever.
He didn't set up his kingdom when he came.
Right.
For as much as thou sawest that the stone, right, talking about Christ, was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces, the iron, the first kingdom, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God have made it known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that part of it, it was fulfilled?
Yes.
Those first 4 kingdoms were completely and totally fulfilled in one sense, but they're not. They were partially fulfilled. They're not fully fulfilled in the sense that guess what? They're coming back.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm going to give you another one. Talking about now, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to show you, because these are the 4 kingdoms. So what we're going to talk about next is we're going to talk about these 2 kingdoms right here, okay? The second kingdom and the third kingdom. Now watch this. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me. So Daniel's going to have a vision, just like Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Daniel's going to have a vision. After that which appeared unto me at the first, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. So then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. Okay, so this is the vision. And the 2 horns that on the ram were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher came up last. And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. Now, when you talk to a scholar, you know what he's going to tell you? And he's going to be right. He's exactly right. When you start reading, you're going to find out that he's talking about this ram is the kingdom of Media Persia, and he's talking about Darius and Cyrus. Okay? In other words, the ram is the kingdom, and the 2 horns are the 2 kings.
Right.
Okay? Now, I'm going to show you that in a second. This is just the vision. So here's this ram, and he's got all this power, and he's got these 2 horns. I mean, I'm sorry, and then something's going to happen. And as I was considering, behold, here comes another character, a he-goat. He came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. And the goat, or the he-goat, had a notable horn, right? And this notable horn, what you're going to find out in all the scholars, even I'm not a scholar, but I even agree with them. They're going to say that this is Alexander the Great, and they're going to be right. So I saw a he-goat come from, I saw this notable horn between his eyes on the he-goat, and he came to the ram. So here comes the he-goat. He comes up against a ram that has two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him. And guess what the he-goat's going to do to the ram? He smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, the he-goat. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of the he-goat's hand, right? Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, that great horn that was on the he-goat, guess what?
Broken.
He was broken, and for it came up four notable ones. So let me tell you, this has all been fulfilled. The ram is Media Persia. Those two horns are the two kings, Darius and Cyrus, right? The he-goat that comes up that has one horn, that notable horn, that was Greece, and that was Alexander the Great. When Alexander the Great fell, guess what? Guess how many kings rose out of Alexander when Alexander the Great died?
Yeah,
Four. And out of one of them came the Roman Empire, guys. So he's going to give you, he's going to tell you he's going to make you understand the vision. What it says. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision. And here's what we all want to do. He sought for the meaning. Then behold, there came and stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Uli, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man, Daniel, to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, look what he says, because God is telling Gabriel to make him, Daniel, understand the vision. And look what he says. Understand, O son of man. Now we know all this has been fulfilled, right?
Right.
But look what he says. Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the what?
The vision.
Wait a second. How's that possible? Because all this has a partial and a full fulfillment. He goes on. He says, the ram, he's going to give you the interpretation, the ram, which thou sawest, having two horns. So see, this isn't my interpretation. This is the truth. The two horns are the kings of who? Media and Persia.
Yeah.
The rough goat is the king of what? It's the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. That's Alexander the Great. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. All that was fulfilled, guys. But look what Gabriel said. He said, understand, for at the time of the end shall be the what? The vision. But that's all those things have already been fulfilled. They're all those kingdoms have passed. All those rulers have died. But he's telling you that this vision is for when?
The end.
The end. Because it hasn't fully been fulfilled. Now watch this. He goes on. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Now look what it says. Tell me if this is past. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes. Has that happened?
No.
It hasn't happened. All of this stuff is a partial fulfillment. But all four of these kingdoms are going to come again. And look what it says. He says he's going to stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. Wherefore, guess what? Shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. Now, don't get me wrong. Many days, it was many days before all this was fulfilled. This was fulfilled after Daniel's time. But he's not talking about that, guys. He's saying all four of these kingdoms have been partially fulfilled. But all four of these kings, remember what he said up here in Daniel chapter 2. In the days of what? These kings shall the God of heaven do what?
Set up a kingdom.
Set up a kingdom. So these have been partially fulfilled. That second kingdom and that third kingdom, even though we know that is a picture of Media Persia and Greece and Alexander the Great, what does Daniel say? He says that understand something, Daniel. Understand something, Carlos. Understand Patricia. Understand John. Understand love. For at the time of the end shall be what?
The vision.
He wants you to understand that those things have been partially fulfilled. This vision is for the end of the world. Now, I'm gonna give you one more here, and I'm going to show you. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Daniel had a vision. Well, we're going to see another dream, another vision. He says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream, and he told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And guess how many there's going to be? It's going to be four. Right? Remember the four up here?
Right.
Right here. Gold, silver, brass, and iron. Right?
Yes.
Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. We're going to see four again. And the four beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now the first was like, guess what?
What?
A lion. And behold, another beast, a second, like to
A bear.
a bear. And after this I beheld, and lo, another, the third, like who? A leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And this leopard, the beast, the leopard, also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, here's the fourth one, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And this fourth beast, guess what it had?
Horns.
It had 10 horns. This is the dream, and this is the vision. 4 beasts coming up from the great sea, a lion, a bear, a leopard, and then the fourth beast had 10 horns. That was the dream, that was the vision. So let's read farther down. He says, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and I asked him the truth of all of this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation. And that's what we want to know, right? We want to know what all this right here means. These great beasts, right? The lion, the bear, the leopard, and the fourth beast with 10 horns. What he says, these great beasts, which are for what? Kings, which what?
Shall arise.
Now, before we get started, I want you to know these are not talking about the original four. And I'm going to show you why. Because in the first verse, this is Daniel 7. In the first verse of Daniel 7, verse 1, this vision was given to Daniel in the first year of who?
Belshazzar.
Okay, so they're still in the first kingdom. They're in Babylon. And Belshazzar is the king. It's not Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Belshazzar, remember, the writing on the wall. Daniel gives it to him and then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and they put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. So in the same night, Belshazzar, king of Babylon, the king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the who?
Median.
So here, this is the very night, on the handwriting on the wall, is the night that the Babylonian kingdom fell and the second kingdom of Media Persia came into power, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important? Because he saw this vision in the first year of this Nebuchadnezzar is gone. This is the last king of Babylon before the the second kingdom comes, right?
Right.
So is this kingdom risen, or is it going to rise? Is this kingdom already in power? Of course, right? They're the ones in power. But here, when he's letting you know the interpretation of these four kings that are going to arise, he says, the four kings, which what? What's that word?
Shall arise.
Shall arise.
So he's talking about four kingdoms in the what?
Future.
And I'll let you know absolutely that he's talking about four in the future, because look what he says. These are four kings which shall arise out of the earth, but the saints of the Most High shall what? Take the kingdom and possess the kingdom for what?
Forever.
Even forever and ever. So the Bible clearly teaches, guys, that there, just like there were four kingdoms before, that was a partial fulfillment. And four kingdoms shall arise. Now, I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to show you in Revelation, I'm going to show you these four kingdoms. Because understand, in Daniel, when he sees these four kingdoms in Daniel, look what it says. Four great beasts came up from the sea. So individually, you're going to have, first one is going to come up, it's going to be the lion, right?
Right.
And then the second one that's going to come up is going to be the bear. And the third one's going to be a leopard, right? And the final kingdom upon the earth is going to be the fourth beast, which has what?
10 horns.
10 horns. But what you're going to find out is in Revelation, you're going to see the final kingdom. Now look at it. This is the final kingdom on the earth. The one right here, the fourth beast, the final kingdom before Christ comes back, that has 10 horns. Now watch this. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a what?
Beast.
Rise up, having 7 heads and what?
10 horns.
10 horns. Just like here. Remember, Daniel saw it. The fourth beast had what? 10 horns. So here it is. He's got 10 horns. What do the 10 horns, this final kingdom, the fourth kingdom that has 10 horns, what do the 10 horns represent? Well, the 10 horns, notice what the 10 horns have. Upon his horns, those 10 horns are what?
10 crowns.
10 crowns.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are what?
10 kings.
10 kings. Of course they're kings, because they have what?
Crowns.
And what are these 10 horns going to do? They have not received no kingdom as yet, but they're going to receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast, the Antichrist, and the final kingdom. These 10 kings of the earth are going to give their power. Look what it says. These have one mind, and these 10 kings are going to give their power and their strength unto who? The beast. So the final kingdom of the Antichrist is going to be that fourth kingdom that's going to arise, is going to have these 10 kings. They're going to give all of their power and their strength to him. But look what else it says about this. He says, I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So why does this beast have, we know he's got 10 horns. We just saw that. Y'all understand that, right, guys?
Yes.
That's the 10 kings, right, of the earth. But why does it say he has 7 heads? Well, let me show you. All right, up here. Notice the first kingdom up here. You got a lion. And that lion is going to have a ruler, right?
Right.
A king. So how many kings is that so far? Count for me. That's 1, right?
Yes.
And the second one's going to be a bear, right?
Yes.
How many kings is he going to have?
2.
Well, no, it's the second empire, but it's only 1 king.
Right.
So that's 2 total, right?
Right.
So when you get down to the third one, the leopard, look what it says about him. The leopard, that beast, had 4 what?
Heads.
So you got 2, and now you got to add what?
4 more.
That gives you how many?
8.
And the fourth one's going to be 1. So how many is that?
7.
So the final one is going to consider, in other words, the final kingdom is going to possess the lion. His power, his dominion is gone, but he's still there.
Yes.
The bear, his dominion, his rule is over with, but he still is consumed in that final kingdom. The leopard, which has 4 heads, he is consumed in that kingdom. In other words, he's not disappeared. He just doesn't have dominion over the world anymore, because the fourth beast is the one that does what?
Rules.
So those 7 heads, the lion has 1, the bear has 1, the leopard has 4, and the final beast, that makes a total of 7 heads, right? So look what he says again. This beast has 7 heads and what?
10 horns.
So we know 1 is from the lion, 1 is from the bear, 4 is from the leopard and himself, right? So that's 7 and 10 horns. Now look, he's going to let you know that this final kingdom is going to look like all those kingdoms that Daniel talked about. He says, and the beast which I saw was like unto what?
Leopard.
A leopard. Uh-oh, guess what? And his feet were the feet of a what?
Bear.
A bear. Right? And guess what? And his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And guess what? And so what you see is all 4 of these kingdoms are going to rise up individually. And whoever the king of the lion kingdom is, he's going to have a king. And whoever the bear kingdom is, he's going to have a king. And whoever the leopard kingdom is, he's going to end up being having 4 heads, right? And then you're going to have the final one, which is going to consume all these other ones. And it's going to make one final kingdom upon the earth, which is going to be, look what it says. And in the days of what? These kings, because all 7 are going to be there, right?
Right.
In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven what?
Set up a kingdom.
Set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume just the last kingdom?
No, all of them.
All these kingdoms. So when Christ comes back with his kingdom, all these are going to be present, all 4 of them. Even though all 4 of them, the partial fulfillment, they're all gone and dead now.
Right.
But guess what? He says right here that I stood upon the sand of the what? sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the what?
See.
When you see something rise up out of the sea, it's like, almost like a resurrection, right?
Right.
And that's what we see right here. Same thing. I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon what? The great sea, and the four great beasts came up from the what?
Sea.
The sea. And it's the same here. You're going to see the resurrection of these four kingdoms. And in the ultimate final Antichrist kingdom, it is going to have the leopard, the lion, the bear, the 10 kings are going to give their strength and power to the beast. The entire world, and we've talked about this before, when that devil is cast out of heaven, the accuser of our brethren, Michael casts him out, and he comes down here and he possesses the Antichrist. You will have the devil in flesh controlling the entire world.
Wow.
And now let me show you this, and we'll get ready to close. He says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others. The others were the lion, the bear, and the leopard, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron. Remember who the iron was in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? It's the fourth kingdom, right? The iron, right down here. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as what?
Iron.
That was Daniel's first dream. I mean, not Daniel's dream, Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? So that's what you're going to see. The fourth beast is going to have teeth like iron, and his nails are going to be like what? Brass. That's the third kingdom, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And the 10 horns that were in his head, those are the 10 kings. And of the other which came up before whom the 3 fell, even of that horn, this is talking about the false prophet that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn, that the false prophet, made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the ancients of days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that, guess what? See, that fourth beast ain't talking about Rome, the original Rome. This is the full fulfillment. This is when, the disciples thought when he was going to Jerusalem that his kingdom was going to immediately appear, and he had to give them a parable.
Right.
I'm going away to receive the kingdom, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to leave you a certain amount of talents. And when I come back, I'm going to take account of my servants when I get back. And that's the time that came that the saints are going to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. And you know what it's going to do? The 10 kings are going to give power to it. It is going to engulf the kingdom of the lion. It's going to engulf the kingdom of the bear. Is going to engulf the kingdom of the leopard. So when you see that beast, you're going to see, guess what? You're going to see 7 heads. You're going to see 10 horns. You're going to see a lion, a leopard, and a bear, because that kingdom of the Antichrist is going to devour the what? Whole earth. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. This is the end of it all. God is going to come back, and when he comes back, remember, when he comes back, guys, this is what it says right here. In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed.
Right.
Now, we'll close with 2 verses. I'm going to show you this and we'll close. So he carried me away in the spirit of the wilderness, and I saw a woman. And listen, we've already done this Bible study. Who's the whore? Who's the woman? Jerusalem, right?
Yes.
So he saw Jerusalem sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. We know who the beast is. The beast is the fourth kingdom. It's the Antichrist kingdom.
Right.
Full of names of blasphemy, having, and we know this is it because it has 7 heads and what? 10 horns. So the woman, Jerusalem, was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abomination and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, talking about Jerusalem, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman, I saw Jerusalem, I saw the mother of harlots, drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, John says, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? Why are you marveling, John? The angel says, I will tell thee, because the mystery of the woman. Well, we already know the mystery of the woman. Who is it? It's Jerusalem. But the mystery doesn't just consist of the mystery of the woman. It's the mystery of the woman and of what?
The beast.
The beast that carrieth the woman. The beast, the Antichrist, this final kingdom is going to carry Jerusalem. Which we know which beast that is. It's the one which has what? 7 heads and 10 horns and appears like a what? A lion, a leopard, and a bear. Now we're going to get a little bit deeper into this next week, but I want you to, this is the main gist I want to get, because I have to show you this, and I want you to understand this, John and Love, because a lot of people just teaches there's going to be the last 7 years, it's the Roman Empire. And you're not going to be here because you're going in the rapture. Okay? And I'm going to tell you what I believe right now. I believe we're in the first kingdom. And maybe hopefully here in a couple of weeks, I'll show you why I believe that. I believe the first seal is the first kingdom. I believe the second seal is the second kingdom. I believe the third seal is the third kingdom, and the fourth seal is the fourth kingdom. And so we'll get into why I believe that later, but I just wanted to show you that those 4 kingdoms were going to be restored. And why is that important? Because when we go back and we looked at the Old Testament, we looked at the wise men, right? Look what it says. When Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them. So he's asking the Pharisees, the scribes, the chief priests. He wants to know where Jesus was born, right?
Right.
And they told him, and we know it's in Micah 5:2, right? And they said it to him in Bethlehem of Judea, because it's written by the prophet. They knew that, right? They knew where the Christ was going to be born.
Yes.
But I want you to know, because something happened here. He went to the scribes and asked about where Jesus was going to be born. But that's not who he asked. Look what he asked the wise men. He goes and he says, then Herod, he privily called the wise men. You know why? Because these people didn't even know the Christ they knew where he was going to be born. They didn't know he had been what? They weren't looking for him. He was coming back. The Messiah he was coming the first time, and he was born, and nobody even knew that he was there.
Right.
So you know what Herod did? Because he knew where he was going to be born, but he didn't know when he had been born. So he called the wise men, and he inquired of them, because he knew they knew the scripture. He knew that he knew that they had been looking for the star, and he wanted to know what time. He did it for an evil purpose. He wanted to know how old the child was.
Right.
But my point is that you can be a believer that can know the scripture a little bit, but you're not mighty in the scriptures. You're not looking for him. You can know he's coming back, but not actually be looking for him to come back. You know that?
Right.
I'm telling you these things, guys, not because I'm right about everything, because I'm wrong about a lot. I don't understand a lot of things, but I understand this. The Bible clearly teaches that 4 kingdoms are going to rise back up. And that's not what modern Christianity and the scholars teach.
Right.
And so I need y'all to understand that. Why do I need y'all to understand that? Because think about the wise men. They're from the East. They're looking at the prophecies of Daniel. Babylon is gone. Oh, okay. The second kingdom's here. You have to recognize that here. You have to recognize that Nebuchadnezzar is the head of gold before you can recognize the second kingdom, right?
Right.
So when Nebuchadnezzar dies and Media Persia takes over, you know that that prophecy has been fulfilled.
Yes.
And so when Media and Persia fall to Alexander the Great, you know that second kingdom's been fulfilled, right? You know you're getting closer to the Christ being born.
Right.
It's the same way with the second coming. He's given you 4 kingdoms. And if you can recognize the first one, then you will recognize the second one. And if you recognize the second one, you can recognize the third one. So when it begins to come to pass, and when these things shall begin to come to pass, then what? Look up and lift your head, because guess what? Your redemption does what? Draweth nigh. So it's important to know if we're in the first kingdom, we need to know, we need to tell our children so we can and they can be looking for the second what? The second kingdom, and then the third kingdom, and then the fourth kingdom. Because when the fourth kingdom gets here, guess what? This world is going to be devoured by that kingdom and by the Antichrist. All right, guys. So y'all have, I hope I didn't make that too complicated. Anybody have any questions?